And how has the firm evolved under your leadership in the last over a dozen years?
Well, I think first we've really had quite significant growth. We've gone from about a $100 million firm when I took over to just about, we finished this last year, Roger, at $487 million at Edelman. So, and if you add in Zeno, our second firm, it's a $500 million business. Second, I think we've been very early in digital, and that's really been a boon for the firm. In fact, it's somewhere 10 to 15% of our fees are directly related to money that we would never otherwise have had that would have gone to advertising or other firms. And then third, we've really built out our global network. We are seriously we're in 52 cities now, and we're in every one of the BRICS. We are substantial in the Middle East and Indonesia, and so we've stretched ourselves substantially.
Advertising is clearly a tactic, as you described earlier, and one that is less effective without the PR landing strip that you just described. Marketing arguably is a strategic discipline and function in corporations. Do you see a trend to convergence of marketing and corporate communications or corporate public relations? And if so, driven at least in part by the digital realities?
But it's also driven by a change in expectation of business. Roger, I think you see that it's now business in society. Mm-hmm. The whole theory of Milton Friedman, which is the sole social responsibility of businesses to make profit, is now being eclipsed by Indra Nooyi, for instance, of PepsiCo, talking about performance and purpose. It's both. Mm-hmm. And so business thinks of itself in a stakeholder mentality instead of just a shareholder. So the reaction by companies is very interesting, where you see a chief communications officer, John Iwata, moving also now to take on marketing. Mm-hmm. So he comes not out of, in a sense, brand management as much as he does with reputation management. Right. So he's put the two together, and I think that the program IBM does on the Planet is brilliant, because it puts IBM at tables where they are convener, they are intellectual capital creator, and they're not just selling boxes and software. Right. It's a whole other way of selling. And then you have a person like Leslie Dock at Walmart, who's in the sort of top 7 people in the firm, who is pushing Walmart to be the change agent in environment through supply chain leverage. And I think that's, again, indicative of this merging of brand and corporate reputation.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as kind of current trends in public relations agency relationships with corporate entities? Are your clients more the marketing people or the corporate communications people, or both? And how is that relationship evolving and working?
Edelman's always had strong relationships with the marketing side of the house, so that we are tied to the CMO is nothing new for us. What is new is that the PR executive, the Roger Bolton of Aetna days, wants a firm to be involved as counseling on global issues, on NGOs, on areas, employee engagement, on things that may be outside of core strength of classic PR director, and wants particularly the global aspect to be on call. So when CEO visits China, what's going to be expected, how to do, what to do, and what basis to have made sure that you've covered, which think tanks to have seen, what intellectual capital should we have developed, what speeches. A lot of that used to be solely internal. And I see more of that now being, in a sense, a shared responsibility between the PR firm and the corporate center.
Strategic partnership?
It's much more a strategic partnership, that's right. It's not a, I use the agency only for arms and legs. It's, look, give me your thinking, give me your connections, give me your wisdom, what do you see out there? And that's really rewarding, you know. It's much better than when I started in the biz, absolutely.
1952, 1997, I think.
Yeah.
We're now in 2010. Imagine we're in 2025. Can you take a stab at what the world might look like as it continues to evolve? What do you see?
Well, I think some of this is straightforward, which is that the power of India, China, Brazil, maybe Russia, will be enhanced. You'll see a continued shift. I think the FT500 10 years ago had only 25 companies from developing nations. As of this year, it's 125 of the 500. Maybe it's half by then, or maybe it's, you know, close to half. So we have to move our mentality to be able to hub business from Sao Paulo or Beijing, not just service business. It's a big change. I think second, we are absolutely going to have to make digital core to how people practice our business. It can't be, you know, oh, call in Edelman digital. You know, that's nice, but everyone has to appreciate the impact of having a Twitter embassy or other techniques that are necessary for connecting corporations in digital world. Third, I think the battle is still being decided about whether it's business and society or whether it's just business for shareholders, and the extent of relationship between business and government and how this is going to play out. Whether this is a short wave amplitude where there's heavy government or whether it's long wave as in the 1930s, I can't tell you. That it seems that the populace doesn't like it to have so much government. They see business as the wealth creator, but if that's the case, business is going to have to re-earn their trust, and they're going to have to behave differently. And whether it's issues of compensation or of giving back to community, either philanthropically or products that are better for, I think that's probably the way it'll go. Business having the leeway, but in a, you know, higher expectation context.
You've been at this for a while now.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on biggest challenges or lessons that you've faced over your career?
I think that the first thing was to realize that, you know, even if I made a mistake, I'd rather act and correct than temporize. And I've made some hiring mistakes. I think that, you know, I've made some acquisitions that probably weren't the best. But, you know, you're going to get up the next day and put your shorts on and get back in the ring. And so some element of you know, stamina or just determination. That's really essential if you're going to be a senior executive. You got to be able to take the punch, because they're going to come, and you don't know when they're going to come. I think second is I've really learned to be a much more global exec, and it's not just because I travel 90 or 100 days a year. It's because I'm thinking about that all the time. That NGO risk might arguably come from the UK first, and how, and having met some of them, and you know, I internalize that now. I don't think I'm anywhere near as smart as I need to be about nationalism in China, for example, with U.S. brands. But you have to constantly be improving yourself in this learning thing. And then, look, it's also a challenge when you take over your dad's company, let's be real. And I had several people who were longtime partners of his kind of thinking, you know, what did he do here? You know, naming this guy to run the firm. And I never was I never had that as sort of a chip on my shoulder. I just did what I did. But I think it's a special burden in a way to have the family name on the door. But it's a special advantage too, because if you're going to get yelled at, it's going to be by your dad, who ultimately has an interest in your succeeding, as opposed to some chairman who ultimately wants to stab you in the back and bring in one of his henchmen or something.